everyone. I'm Misha and I am here today with Dr. Brian at Disney's Animal Kingdom, and I am absolutely nerding out about all of the plants. And we just found a plant that I've never seen before, which is really not that hard because there are tons of plants out there, right? But this one is so unusual. And so I thought you might like to join me to learn how to identify a plant, some different tips and tricks when you meet one that you've never seen before. So in order to figure out who this guy is, the first thing I'm going to do is look at the flowers because they're big and they're here and they're beautiful, and you might notice they look a lot like the night blooming cactus that we have profiled in the past. So I'm just going to really gently open this guy up, this beautiful lady, depending upon how you view it, and see, and sure enough, I can see close enough to see that the inside is indeed very similar to some of our night blooming cactuses. So when I go back to my books and the interweb, that will really help me get a good idea of it. The next thing I'm going to look at is the overall habit of the plant. So that means how it's growing. Now, we're at Animal Kingdom, so there's a pretty good chance that stuff is growing where it wouldn't normally be, so I can't really judge the habitat, but I can look at the overall shape and structure of the plant. So if you look up, I will be looking at the leaves, which are really unusual. They're flat, and I can't really tell whether they're alternate or opposite on the stem because they're super funky, but I can look at the shape and see that they're flat, they're wavy, and they have that kind of ruffled edge. They're long and lanceolate in shape. And then I can look at how it's also growing as not a tree vine, but as a climbing plant. So I'll take all of this information back and I'll go with the flower, the shape of it, what it looks like, the size. It is about the size of my hand, so it's a pretty darn big flower. And judging by the fact that it is not noon yet and the flowers are closed, I'm going to assume that this is a night blooming flower. So we'll take all of that together and see if we can identify this plant. Okay, so I'm home now and I want to learn what this plant is. And the procedure that I'm going to share with you really works with pretty much any plant you meet. What you need to do is make sure that you take a couple steps to sort of help you along the way so that when you get to the place where you're actually trying to identify it, you are prepared to do so. So I have taken some photos of the plant so I can remember what the flowers looked like and what the leaves looked like. I strongly encourage you that if you decide that you want to do this type of thing, or if you want to find out what the plant is, to take a look at those photos. So the first thing I'm going to do is type in night blooming cactus. You can see I've kind of already practiced this with flat leaves. And so this is what pops up. So night blooming cereus, which I know it's not that. And understand sometimes that the first link that you get might not be the best choice. So I know it's not the night blooming cereus because I have them, I work with them a lot. So what I'm going to do is pop into the images and I'm going to see if I can find an image that looks very close to it. Now, the shopping is actually sometimes can be a great thing to do because you might be able to find something on the shopping here that looks similar. I'm actually looking at the photos of the flowers and not really seeing anything that looks even really close. So instead I'm gonna shoot down here and look and see if there's any on these photos here just in the Google images that would help. And this guy right here, this one that says night blooming cereus, which it's not. Let's take a look at that. Let's see if we can figure out what this is. So right here, Epiphylum Oxipedulum, Dutchman's pipe cactus, lady of the night, night blooming cereus, orchid cactus, and queen of the night. Now, this is probably why it's called night blooming cereus, and it's interesting because the Solanus cereus that we have here in Florida, both the queen of the night and the princess of the night, have similar common names. They are also called night blooming cereus at sometimes. So this is a great example of why those common names can be a little confusing when you're trying to figure out what the plant is. But we're going to go with Epiphylum Oxipedulum, and this is actually, once I did a little bit of research on this guy, I found out that this one very much is one that is considered to be an orchid cactus. So you'll see it here identified as orchid cactus. And right here, this video right here is is exactly what I saw. So you can see that it has the flat leaves. It's got the flowers kind of drooping off of them. They have a really distinct pink color, which I noted. And then the cactus part, I'm calling them leaves. They have other names, of course. The succulent parts are nice and flat and long. So what if I didn't know that that was a night blooming cactus? That was the easy way to do that. So what if you didn't even know that it was a cactus, right? So a really great way to start is by either looking at the leaves and the leaf arrangement or the flower. So let's just say, so I'm going to type in large white flower that blooms at night because it was noon, so the flower was closed. So generally speaking, that means that it would have bloomed at night. And then I'm going to type in Florida. So, and actually you can see here, like it's saying like when. Let's put in June and let's see what pops up. So here we go. Right here. This is great. So here's a great article where it's talking about the night blooming cereus, Selenus grandiflorus. So again, this is a great example of how that name gets used a lot. Oh wow, this is really not correct. Okay, so here's a moonflower. So we know that's not that. We can kind of look, so we could look at this one if we thought maybe it was this, but you can see here that the cactus parts are really long and thin and not flat. They look more rounded. What's really great is this though, we can look at the flower and go, hey, that looks a lot like it. So that can clue us in that it is a cactus. And then we could say cactus that blooms at night in Florida in June. And so this is what we get. Now, here's a great example of, so we can go ahead and click on this link. Here's a great example of figuring out whether or not that's what we have. Oh my gosh, all the pop-ups. Okay, no, we're not gonna do that. Okay, so here we go. Flowers, beautiful, awesome. So such a pretty thing. And this is the Tampa Bay Times, but I'm not seeing any example of the plant itself. So what I can do then is take that name, put it into my Google, and look, and right away, no, that's not what we have. So, nope, not it. So then I could say, well, I know it's a night blooming cactus, and then I'm back to with flat leaves. And here we go. Here's where we start looking at the Dutch, I think it's called the Dutchman's pipe cactus or the orchid cactus. And again, we have like that very, very similar name. And the truth is that there's a lot of them with that name. So if it wasn't a cactus, of course, you could type in the flower color. You could type in the number of leaves. I'll do another one of these videos where you can see something that maybe isn't as easy, but that just gives you an idea of using keywords to help you find exactly what you're looking for. Okay, so that should give you some ideas on how to just, again, super basic, but if you can look at the flower size, the color of it, the shape. So let's say I didn't know that was a cactus flower. Maybe I could say that it was a large white flower and you saw right away it came up with the night blooming cactus. You could even type in the shape. If you saw that cactus like blooming or the flower blooming, you could type in the number of petals it has. So a lot of times I'll type in like yellow flower with 5 petals, but I really strongly recommend you encourage your location. So or you include your location rather. So you would put in Florida, right? Or in wherever you're at in the world. The other thing too is looking at the type of plant. So is it a tree? Is it a cactus? Is it a shrub? Is it ground cover? Putting that in can also help you figure it out and at least like narrow it down. If you can find something that looks similar to the plant that you're trying to identify, then you can at least kind of get it like in the ballpark, and then you can narrow it down from there. The other thing too that I typically will look at is where the plant's growing. So is it growing as a vine? Is it growing by water? Is it growing in an area that's really, really dry? Because we often get plants that are the same type of plant. Like here in Florida, for instance, our St. John's wort. We have a lot of different versions of them. They all look similar, but what you can do is see like where it's growing. So we have some that like it a little more damp and some that like it a little bit more dry. People also always want to know about plant apps. So I'm going to tell you all a secret. I don't use plant apps. I know. There are some really great ones out there. You could just take a picture and it'll pull it right up. But my experience with most of people using plant apps is that they do not give really great identification. Sometimes they're great to help you kind of ballpark it to get it close to what it might be. But in general, if you really want to know, hey, this is that plant, the apps are not a good choice for that. So good old fashioned books, right? Like lots of identification books. The only reason I didn't use a book for that one is because I don't have any books on night blooming cactuses. So to the interwebs with that. But if you have any kind of plant identification book for your area, of course you can look up according to like the flower color, flower size. A lot of times plant ID books are divided up by that, or you can look at the leaf arrangement, the shape of the leaves, and how they're placed like along the stem, and the size as well. So for me, like plant apps, not so much. I'm much more likely to use, I like to look at the plant, come up with some identifying keywords, like again, color, shape, size, type of plant, and then put that into either a search in a book. I guess you could put it in a book. Either search for it in a book or put it into the computer using those keywords, and that is a great way to narrow it down. Keep in mind that if you are either trying to eat the plant or use it for medicinal purposes, it is extremely important that you are spot on with your identification. So again, the apps can help you kind of get close to that, but you want to make sure that you are really, really definitely getting the plant that you want if you are working with the plant in either of those ways. So this was just a quick way to kind of get you jump started in learning plant identification. I actually have been working as a botanist and as a wild Florida nature guide for, oh my God, like 30 years of my life. So it's a lot of practice. Like it's a lot of practice. I still meet plants all the time that I don't know. This one, obviously. I can tell you though, I totally picked out and identified that plant while we were waiting in line for one of the rides. So it can be that simple and not easy. You just have to take some time to practice it, and you'll be identifying your plants in no time.